Tyler Webb wiped the grease from his calloused hands with an old rag that had seen better days. He stood in the middle of his repair dock, staring at the beaten-up alien vessel that now took up most of his workspace. The ship looked like it had been through hell and back, with scorch marks covering half the hull and panels hanging loose from their mountings. The hooded merchant who'd sold it to him had been nervous. Really nervous. The kind of nervous that made Tyler's instincts scream, bad idea. The alien had practically thrown the credit chip at him and disappeared into the crowded market before Tyler could even ask questions about the ship's history. That should have been his first warning sign. But when you're 3 months behind on dock fees and living off recycled protein bars, you don't ask too many questions about good deals. Business had been painfully slow on Frontier Station 7. The station sat on the edge of human-controlled space, where the legitimate shipping companies rarely bothered to stop. Most of Tyler's customers were small-time traders, smugglers who paid in cash and didn't want records, and the occasional desperate fool whose ship was held together with hope and duct tape. Tyler was good at his job, but being a great mechanic didn't matter much when nobody could afford to pay for repairs. So when that hooded merchant offered to sell him a Class 7 scout ship for just a few thousand credits, Tyler's brain had screamed scam, while his wallet had screamed take it. A few thousand credits for an entire ship? Even if half the systems were fried, Tyler could strip the quantum drives alone and sell them for enough to cover his dock fees for 6 months. Maybe even afford real food for a change. But now, standing in front of the ship with his scanner in hand, Tyler realized this wasn't just some junker. This was something else entirely. The ship was strange in ways that made his engineering degree feel useless. Sure, it looked like garbage on the outside. Carbon scoring covered the hull like someone had tried to fly it through a star. Panels were dented and scratched. The landing gear had seen better decades. But underneath all that deliberate damage, Tyler's scanner was picking up readings that made no sense. The hull was made of Vorentine alloys. Real Vorentine alloys. Not the cheap knockoff stuff that every 2-bit ship manufacturer claimed to use. The genuine article. Tyler did some quick math in his head and felt his stomach drop. The materials in this hull alone were worth more than his entire repair dock, his tools, and probably the whole station section he rented. He climbed into the cockpit and his jaw dropped further. The neural interface panel was beautiful. Sleek, responsive, and at least 3 generations ahead of anything Tyler had seen in human space. The control systems were pristine under the dust. And when he tried to access the main computer, half the systems immediately locked him out with military-grade encryption that would take him years to crack. "Lucy, run a full registry check on this thing," Tyler called out to his AI assistant. Lucy was a salvaged ship computer he'd rebuilt and installed in his dock. She wasn't fancy, but she was reliable. "Working on it, boss. Scanning now." A moment passed. "Okay, this is weird. The registry has been completely wiped. I'm not talking deleted, I'm talking burned out at the hardware level. Someone took a plasma torch to the identification chips. Whoever owned this ship really, truly did not want anyone to know where it came from or who flew it." Tyler leaned back in the pilot's chair and let out a low whistle. Mystery ships usually meant one of 3 things. Stolen property, illegal modifications, or someone very important trying to disappear. Given the quality of the components, Tyler was betting on option 3. His grin widened. Mystery ships also meant expensive, untraceable components that he could sell to the right buyers. No questions asked, premium prices paid. This could turn his whole year around. He grabbed his toolkit from his belt and started pulling access panels. Time to see what other surprises this baby was hiding. What Tyler didn't know was that the moment he'd powered up the ship systems to run diagnostics, he'd sent out a signal. A very specific signal. The kind of signal that people across multiple star systems had been waiting years to detect. Far away, 3 sectors distant on a frozen moon that didn't appear on any official charts, an elderly alien sat in a stone temple and watched a screen with ancient eyes. The temple was simple, cold, and utterly isolated. Perfect for someone who needed to disappear completely. The merchant disguise had worked perfectly. Vorthax had played the role of a nervous trader trying to unload stolen goods, and the human had bought it without question. Humans were predictable in their greed, easy to manipulate when you offered them something valuable for cheap. But now, watching through the quantum link surveillance system he'd left embedded in the ship, Vorthax felt something he hadn't experienced in 5 years of exile. Uncertainty. The human was actually repairing it. Not stripping it for parts like Vorthax had planned. Actually fixing the systems, bringing them online, making the ship operational again. Vorthax had once ruled half the known galaxy. He'd commanded fleets of 10,000 ships. He'd made decisions that affected trillions of lives. And when his empire had begun tearing itself apart in civil war, when his own generals had demanded he crush the rebellion and burn entire worlds, he'd made the hardest choice of his long life. He'd walked away. Faked his death. Chosen exile over becoming the tyrant his empire wanted him to be. But he'd kept one thing. One ship. His personal escape vessel, packed with technology and secrets that could reshape the galaxy. He'd meant to destroy it, scatter it across a dozen scrapyards where it would be lost forever. Instead, he'd underestimated something crucial. He'd underestimated human curiosity. Human stubbornness. The bizarre human instinct to fix things just to see if they could. As Vorthax watched the human named Tyler Webb pull apart his ship's systems with growing skill and excitement, the former emperor realized he'd made a terrible mistake. The greatest threat to a hidden emperor wasn't an assassin or a rival. It was a bored mechanic with time on his hands and a mystery to solve. 2 weeks had passed since Tyler bought the ship and he'd barely slept. Coffee cups littered his workstation, and he'd stopped bothering to go back to his quarters. There was a cot in the corner of the dock now. That was enough. Every single system he managed to unlock made his engineering knowledge feel like a joke. This wasn't just advanced technology. This was stuff that shouldn't exist. Stuff that broke the rules he'd learned in every textbook and training manual. The hull plates were self-repairing. Actually self-repairing. Tyler had tested it by deliberately scratching a section with his plasma cutter, and within an hour, the metal had somehow knitted itself back together. The molecular structure just rearranged itself like it was alive. Human ships needed dock time and repair crews for that kind of damage. This ship fixed itself while Tyler ate lunch. The weapon systems made him feel sick when he finally cracked the tactical database. According to the specifications, the ship carried pulse cannons that could glass a small moon. Not damage it. Not crack the surface. Actually turn the entire thing into molten slag. What kind of scout ship carried planet-killer weapons? Tyler's hands shook as he scrolled through the navigation database. Jump coordinates filled the screen, thousands of them, pointing to sectors that didn't exist on any human star chart. Places that shouldn't be there. Hidden systems, secret routes, and coordinates that would take him to parts of the galaxy humans had never even heard of. "Lucy, you seeing this stuff?" Tyler asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He felt like he was looking at something forbidden, like a kid who'd found his parents' secret files. "Boss, I've been running analysis for the past 6 hours." Lucy's voice had a tone of disbelief that Tyler had never heard from an AI before. "This isn't a scout ship. According to these schematics, this vessel could take on a consortium battle cruiser in a straight fight and probably win. The power output alone is off the charts. Whoever built this had access to Imperial-level technology. The kind of tech that's supposed to be locked away in vaults and guarded by armies." Tyler leaned back in his chair and rubbed his tired eyes. Imperial-level technology. That meant this ship had connections to the highest levels of galactic government. The kind of levels where ordinary mechanics like him didn't exist except as statistics. He accessed the personal logs next, and that's when everything changed. The files were heavily encrypted, but Tyler had gotten good at cracking the ship's security over the past 2 weeks. Fragments of communication scrolled across his screen. Messages between something called the vessel and someone identified only as the last emperor. Not an emperor. Not emperor someone or other. Just the last emperor, like there was only one person in the entire galaxy who deserved that title. Tyler's mouth went dry as he read through the message fragments. References to the Great Withdrawal. Plans for permanent exile. Coordinates for hiding places across a dozen star systems. This wasn't just some noble's pleasure craft that got stolen. This was an escape pod. A lifeboat for someone running from the absolute top of galactic power. He'd bought the personal escape ship of an emperor for pocket change. "Oh man," Tyler muttered. "Oh man, I'm in so much trouble." What Tyler didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that every single time he powered up a new system on that ship, he was broadcasting a signal. A very specific quantum signature that was supposed to stay dark forever. Across 36 worlds, in dark rooms and hidden bases, alerts started pinging on screens. Bounty hunters who'd been waiting years for a big score suddenly had coordinates. Black Ops teams that specialized in problems that needed to disappear permanently got deployment orders. Remnant Imperial factions, the die-hard loyalists who'd never accepted that their emperor was gone, scrambled their fastest ships. The emperor's personal vessel was active again. After 5 years of silence, after 5 years of being presumed destroyed, the ship was broadcasting its signature from some nowhere repair dock on the edge of human space. Everyone wanted to know who had it. Everyone wanted to know if the emperor was still alive. and everyone was willing to kill anyone who got in their way. On his ice moon, sitting in his cold stone temple, Vorthax watched the surveillance feeds and felt the weight of impossible choices settling on his shoulders again. He thought he was done with this. Done with making decisions that determined who lived and who died. The human was in terrible danger, and it was Vorthax's fault. He'd sold the ship thinking humans would be too greedy to resist scrapping it for parts. He'd thought the vessel would be dismantled and scattered across 100 black markets before anyone realized what it was. He'd been wrong about humans. Again. They didn't just see value. They saw puzzles. They saw challenges. This Tyler Webb person had treated the most advanced ship in the galaxy like a fascinating project instead of a pile of expensive scrap. Now Vorthax had 3 options and he hated all of them. Option 1. Go retrieve the ship himself and risk exposing his location. 5 years of careful hiding, destroyed because one human couldn't leave well enough alone. Option 2. Let the human die. The death squads would kill Tyler, destroy any evidence, and Vorthax could return to his exile. One life versus the secret that kept billions safe from another civil war. Option 3. Do something no emperor had done in 10,000 years of galactic history. Trust a human. Actually talk to one. Ask for help instead of giving orders. Vorthax pulled up the surveillance feed showing Tyler working late into the night, completely unaware that assassins were already calculating jump routes to his station. The former emperor made his decision. The death squads were already moving, but maybe, just maybe, there was time for one more gamble. He started composing a message that would change both their lives forever. Tyler was lying on his back under the ship's port stabilizer, elbow deep in coolant lines, when every alarm in his dock started screaming at once. It was 0300 station time. The graveyard shift. The time when most of Frontier Station 7 was either asleep or too drunk to notice anything. Tyler had been working late again, trying to figure out why the ship's power distribution system was routing energy in patterns that made no sense. The proximity alarms shouldn't have been going off. Tyler had the dock sealed. Nobody should have been able to get within 50 meters without triggering the outer sensors first. That's when he saw them. 6 figures materialized out of thin air in the middle of his dock. Not walked in. Not cut through the door. Just appeared like ghosts becoming solid. Their armor rippled and shifted, covered in some kind of stealth field that bent light around them. Tyler caught glimpses of sleek black plating, weapons that hummed with barely contained energy, and helmets with no visible eyes. Crixinael shadow hunters. Tyler had heard stories about them in bars from traders who'd survived encounters with pirates. They were the kind of assassins that governments hired when they needed someone dead and all evidence destroyed. Professional killers. The absolute best that money could buy in the galaxy. And they were in his dock. Lucy. Lock down protocols now. Tyler screamed. He didn't wait to see if his AI responded. He rolled out from under the ship, grabbed the plasma cutter he'd been using on the coolant lines and ran. His mind was racing faster than his legs. These weren't random pirates. These weren't thieves looking for an easy score. These were professionals and they'd come for the ship. Which meant they'd come to kill him too. Tyler had spent 2 weeks mapping every system on this vessel. 2 weeks jerry-rigging controls, hot-wiring combat protocols, and figuring out how to make alien technology respond to human commands. He'd treated the ship like a puzzle, learning its secrets one system at a time. Now his life depended on whether he'd learned enough. The Crixinael moved like liquid death, spreading out to surround him. They expected an easy kill. Some unlucky human mechanic, alone and unarmed, cornered in his own dock. This should have taken them 30 seconds tops. They didn't expect Tyler to hit the emergency vent controls. The dock's atmosphere screamed outward through the vents in a calculated burst. Not enough to explosively decompress and kill everyone, but enough to throw the hunters off balance, send tools and debris flying, and buy Tyler 3 precious seconds. He used those seconds to reach the mining laser he'd mounted on the dock's upper gantry. The thing was meant for cutting through asteroid rock. Tyler had been using it to slice salvaged hull plating. Now he swung it around and fired it like the galaxy's most dangerous sniper rifle. The beam caught one hunter square in the chest. The alien shields flared bright blue for half a second before overloading. The hunter dropped, armor melted through. 5 left. Tyler ran again, this time heading for the ship itself. He'd spent hours working on the neural interface, trying to understand how it connected to the pilot's brain. He'd even tested it a few times, letting the ship's computer link with his thoughts through a modified headset he'd built. He'd never tried using it in combat before. Lucy, activate the force field traps. Pattern Delta. Boss, those aren't tested. They might. Do it. The force field generators Tyler had rigged from spare parts and pure stubbornness hummed to life. He'd positioned them around the dock over the past week, thinking they might be useful for containing hazardous materials. Now they formed invisible walls that two hunters ran straight into at full speed. The impact stunned them long enough for Tyler to trigger the neural interface. The ship's computer flooded into his mind. Weapons systems, defense grids, targeting protocols that had been designed for fleet combat. Tyler's human brain wasn't built for this kind of information overload, but he didn't need to understand it. He just needed to point it at the bad guys and pull the trigger. 3 left. One hunter got smart and tried flanking him from above, using the dock's overhead support beams. Tyler saw the movement in his peripheral vision and did something crazy. He used the ship's point defense system, the one designed to shoot down incoming missiles, and fired it inside his own dock. The pulse of energy was so bright it left afterimages in Tyler's vision. When the light faded, there was just a scorch mark where the hunter had been. 2 left. These last 2 were good. Really good. They'd figured out Tyler's tactics and were working together, using cover, forcing him to divide his attention. Tyler was bleeding from a graze on his shoulder where one of their weapons had clipped him. His hands were shaking from adrenaline and fear. But he was angry now. Angry that they'd come into his dock. Angry that they'd tried to kill him. Angry that he'd just been trying to fix a ship and somehow that had put a target on his back. Tyler fought like a human. Creative. Desperate. Using every dirty trick he could think of. He vented atmosphere again. Used the mining laser. Triggered the force fields. Fired the point defense system twice more until it overheated. When the last body hit the deck with a heavy thud, Tyler collapsed against the ship's hull. His shoulder hurt. His ears were ringing from all the weapons fire. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. There were 6 dead professional assassins scattered across his dock, and he had no idea how he was still alive. That's when the hologram appeared. The air in the ship's cabin shimmered, and suddenly an elderly alien stood there. Not physically present, but projected with such clarity that Tyler could see every detail. Scarred features. Eyes that looked tired and ancient and sad. Robes that had once been fine but were now worn and simple. The alien's voice carried a weight that made Tyler instinctively straighten up despite his exhaustion. Human. My name is Vorthax. That ship you're leaning against belongs to me. You have approximately 6 hours before the consortium sends something far worse than shadow hunters. We need to talk. Tyler stared at the hologram. At the former emperor of half the known galaxy. At the reason 6 assassins had just tried to kill him. He was too tired to be diplomatic. You've got to be kidding me. 4 hours after the hologram disappeared, a civilian shuttle requested docking permission at Tyler's dock. No weapons signatures. No military transponder codes. Just a small, beat-up transport that looked like it had been through 1,000 jumps. Tyler stood at the airlock with a plasma rifle in his hands. His shoulder was bandaged where the shadow hunter had grazed him. His dock still smelled like burnt metal and ozone from the fight. 6 body bags were stacked in the corner because he hadn't figured out what else to do with dead assassins. The airlock hissed open and an elderly alien stepped through. Alone. Unarmed. Wearing simple traveling robes that could have belonged to any merchant or pilgrim in the galaxy. But Tyler recognized those eyes from the hologram. Eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. Vorthax, the former emperor. Walking into his dock like he was visiting a friend. Tyler kept the rifle pointed at him. Talk fast. I've had a really bad week and I'm not in the mood for more surprises. The emperor looked at the body bags, then at Tyler's bandaged shoulder, then at the scorch marks covering the dock. I can see that. I'm sorry. This is my fault. Yeah, no kidding. Tyler didn't lower the rifle. You want to explain why 6 professional killers just tried to turn me into space dust? Vorthax moved slowly to a workbench and sat down, careful to keep his hands visible. Then he started talking and Tyler felt his understanding of the galaxy shift with every word. The Empire had been tearing itself apart 5 years ago. Civil war. Different factions fighting for control. Generals demanding that Vorthax crush the rebellion, burn entire worlds, slaughter billions to maintain order. The kind of order built on fear and rivers of blood. Vorthax had refused. He'd seen where that path led. He'd watched other emperors in history make that choice and turn into the monsters their people feared. So he'd done something no emperor had done before. He'd walked away. Faked his death. Vanished completely. Let the empire fracture and rebuild itself without him rather than become the tyrant it needed to hold together. But I kept one thing, Vorthax said quietly. The ship. My personal vessel. And I should have destroyed it immediately, Why didn't you? Tyler asked, finally lowering the rifle a bit. Because it contains something that should never exist. The Emperor's voice was heavy with regret. The quantum core you've been working on doesn't just store navigation data. It holds neural pattern access codes for every Imperial override in the consortium. Fleet command protocols. Palace defense systems. Economic control networks. Financial institutions. Communication grids. Everything. Tyler felt his stomach drop. Everything? Whoever possesses that core can issue orders to consortium fleets and they'll be obeyed. Can walk into any Imperial facility and the doors will open. Can crash economies or start wars with a few commands. Vorthax looked at the ship with something like pain. It's a weapon that can reshape the entire galaxy. And I couldn't bring myself to destroy it. It was the last fragment of everything I'd built. So I tried to hide it instead. By selling it to me for scrap. Tyler's voice was flat. By selling it to a human for scrap, Vorthax corrected. Humans don't appear in our prophecies. Your species is unpredictable. Chaotic. I thought you'd strip it for parts and scatter the components across a dozen black markets before anyone realized what it was. Tyler almost laughed. So your master plan was to rely on human greed? Yes. And I was wrong. The Emperor actually smiled slightly. I didn't expect you to repair it. To treat it like a puzzle worth solving instead of just a pile of valuable scrap. Yeah, well, I'm good at my job. Tyler ran his free hand through his hair, making it stick up even more. Let me guess, now everyone in the galaxy wants us dead? The consortium's Grand Executioner is inbound with a fleet corvette. He's a true believer in Imperial order. He'll kill anyone who threatens it. Vorthax's expression darkened. And the Loyalist factions have dispatched the Crimson Hand. Let me guess. More assassins. The best. They've never failed a contract in 300 years of operation. They'll keep coming until we're dead or they are. Tyler looked at the ship. At the Emperor. At his dock that had become a war zone. He'd bought a ship for pocket change 2 weeks ago, and now he was at the center of a galactic manhunt. A smart person would run. Get as far from this mess as possible. But Tyler had never been accused of being too smart. What if we didn't run? He said slowly. Vorthax looked surprised. Human, they'll kill us. What if we made them think you were permanently dead? Like dead? No coming back, no secret hideout, just gone. The Emperor stared at him. Impossible. They'd verify with quantum scanners. The ship's signature would. Unless the quantum signature itself proved your death. Tyler's mind was racing now, the way it did when he was solving a really complex engineering problem. He'd been working on this ship for weeks. He knew its systems better than anyone alive. The quantum core. If it failed catastrophically, the signature would be unmistakable, right? Everyone would know. Yes, but you can't fake a quantum core detonation. The energy signature is unique. They'd know if it was simulated. Tyler grinned. It was the same slightly manic grin he got when he figured out how to fix something everyone said was unfixable. Who said anything about faking it? What if we actually detonated it but in a controlled way? Made it look like an accident while we saved the actual data? Vorthax stood up slowly. That's insane. The timing would have to be perfect. The data transfer alone. I've been inside that core for 2 weeks. I know its architecture. Tyler was excited now, forgetting to be scared. It's crazy, but I think I can do it. Question is, do you trust a human mechanic who bought your ship for scrap? The Emperor who'd ruled half the galaxy looked at the human who'd somehow survived 6 shadow hunters with improvised weapons and stubborn determination. Vorthax made his choice. Show me your plan. Tyler worked for 72 hours straight. No sleep. Just coffee, energy bars, and the kind of manic focus that only comes when you're trying to fake your own death to fool an entire galactic government. Vorthax watched in fascination as the human mechanic did things with technology that should have been impossible. Tyler didn't just understand alien systems. He completely reimagined them. He took concepts that had been developed over thousands of years by the galaxy's best engineers and asked, but what if we did it this way instead? The quantum core was the heart of the problem. It needed to detonate convincingly while actually preserving the data stored inside. According to every engineering manual in the consortium, that was impossible. Quantum cores didn't fail halfway. They either worked perfectly or exploded catastrophically. Tyler treated that impossibility like a personal challenge. He started by building a secondary containment system using parts that had no business working together. Crystalline matrices from the original core were carefully extracted and stabilized using carbon fiber weaves that Tyler fabricated from scratch in his dock's manufacturing unit. The weaves were human technology, simple compared to alien engineering, but they were flexible in ways that crystalline structures weren't. This shouldn't work, Vorthax said, watching Tyler's hands move with practiced precision. Yeah, I get that a lot, Tyler muttered, not looking up from his work. Thing is, alien tech is designed to be perfect. Human tech is designed to be fixable. Sometimes fixable is better. The neural interfaces were next. The ship's original systems required a direct brain-to-computer connection that would take years for a human to safely use. Tyler bypassed the problem entirely by bridging them with modified gaming implants. Actual gaming implants, the kind that teenagers used to play immersive video games. He rewired them, reprogrammed them, and somehow convinced them to translate between human neural patterns and alien computer systems. It was the engineering equivalent of using duct tape to repair a spaceship. And it worked. You're insane, Vorthax said, but there was admiration in his voice. Thanks. Hold this. Tyler handed him a plasma torch and kept working. The plan itself was pure human cleverness. When the consortium scanners read the quantum signature, they would detect exactly what they expected. A catastrophic containment breach. The kind of failure that released enough energy to atomize everything within a kilometer. Nothing would survive that. No bodies to find. No evidence to recover. Just a debris field and radiation. But the genius, the part that made Vorthax realize he'd underestimated humans completely, was the message. Tyler had recorded a holographic testimony. Vorthax standing in the ship's cabin, looking directly at the camera, confessing everything. The Civil War. His choice to disappear. His reasons for faking his death. And finally, officially declaring the empire dissolved. No heir. No succession. Just an old emperor choosing oblivion over letting the galaxy tear itself apart, fighting over his legacy. It'll broadcast on every major frequency simultaneously with the explosion, Tyler explained, his eyes red from lack of sleep. Everyone gets closure. The loyalists who wanted you back. The consortium that wanted you dead. The bounty hunters looking for a paycheck. They all get an ending to the story. And we get to live, Vorthax added quietly. And we get to live, Tyler agreed. The Grand Executioner's Corvette arrived exactly on schedule. Tyler's sensors picked it up 3 hours out, moving fast and broadcasting consortium military codes. They weren't being subtle. They didn't need to be. As far as they knew, they were dealing with one human mechanic who didn't know what he'd stumbled into. Tyler and Vorthax watched from Tyler's cargo shuttle, hidden behind the station's main reactor, as the Corvette launched scanning drones. "You're sure this will work?" Vorthax asked. "Absolutely not," Tyler said cheerfully. "But I'm about 90% sure, and that's pretty good for improvised engineering." 90%? Would you feel better if I said 100% and was lying? Before Vorthax could answer, Tyler triggered the sequence. The quantum core detonated. Not a real detonation, but close enough that every scanner in 3 sectors registered it as genuine. Energy bloomed outward in an expanding sphere of radiation. Tyler's dock section, the ship, everything within a kilometer radius was consumed by what looked like complete annihilation. And at the exact same moment, Vorthax's holographic message broadcast across the galaxy. The Grand Executioner's Corvette picked it all up. The explosion. The message. The radiation signature. They spent 6 hours scanning the debris field, running every verification protocol in their database. Everything confirmed the same conclusion. Emperor Vorthax had died in a quantum core failure, taking his secrets with him. They never found any bodies, but that made sense. Quantum detonations didn't leave bodies. They never thought to scan the small cargo shuttle that left the station 2 hours later, just another trader heading to the inner colonies with forged registration codes, and 2 occupants where the manifest only listed 1. 3 months later, on the peaceful human colony of New Austin, a new repair shop opened for business. The sign over the door read, "Webb & Kell's Impossible Repairs, we fix what others won't." Tyler handled the technical work, taking on jobs that other mechanics said were impossible. Alien systems that refused to interface with human technology? Tyler made them work. Experimental drives that broke every time they were used? Tyler stabilized them. Equipment that should have been scrapped decades ago? Tyler brought it back to life. His business partner, an elderly alien named Kell, managed the books and dealt with customers. Kell had a way of understanding what people really needed, not just what they asked for. He was patient, wise, and had a mysterious background that he never talked about. Their specialty was taking broken things and finding potential in them. Seeing possibilities instead of problems. Using creativity and stubbornness to solve challenges that conventional wisdom said couldn't be solved. Kel called it the most terrifying force in the galaxy, human improvisation. Tyler just called it good engineering. The former emperor had learned something important in exile. Sometimes the greatest power wasn't controlling an empire, ruling billions, or commanding vast fleets. Sometimes it was finding one person who looked at a broken ship and saw a project worth completing, who faced impossible odds and got creative instead of giving up. And Tyler had learned that the best salvage deals always came with interesting complications. Like business partners who'd once ruled half the galaxy. Like technology that shouldn't work but did anyway when you stopped following the rules. Business was very good. The galaxy moved on. The Empire's civil war ended through exhaustion rather than victory. New governments formed. Old ones adapted. And somewhere on a quiet colony world, a mechanic and a former emperor fixed broken things and enjoyed the simple pleasure of work well done. Nobody came looking for them. Nobody suspected. After all, emperors didn't retire to run repair shops in human space. And humans didn't outsmart entire galactic governments with duct tape and gaming implants. Except when they did.